Welcome back to Broken Electronics. I'm Lee, and it's great that you could stop by for today's video. Now, we're going to be turning our attention once again to a PowerMac G5 Quad. This is the second one that I have. I know I've always said it's good to have spares, so that may be carrying it a little bit to extremes. But it was very inexpensive. I got it for 50 bucks, and it works. In our last video, I put in two PCIe cards, a FireWire 800 card and an eSATA card. I also installed Tiger because the installation of the operating system that was on that machine was just bonkers. I mentioned at that point that I did plan to put in another drive and install Leopard. That's today's video. But I'd like to talk about this a little bit because one of the problems in working with these machines and trying to put SSDs in them is that they are so touchy. Most SATA 3 SSDs, certainly none that I have ever tried, will even register on the system. Now, I've done a great deal of research to see if there's something we can do short of having to resort to this. And God bless OWC. I'm glad they're there. It's great that we can have this, but this SSD plus the carriage to fit it into a 3.5-inch space, put together it's about 150 bucks. Now, I also did a video recently where I used a WD Blue 1 terabyte drive, which seems to be working very, very well. That's about $50. Now, is there a middle area? So I read about this extensively, and what seemed to be the case was that not all SATA 3 SSDs are in fact backwards compatible. So if you can find one that clearly states that it is backwards compatible both to SATA 2 and to SATA 1, it should work in the PowerMac. I have no idea if it will, but there's only one way to find out. So I poured over advertisements for SSDs, and I got this from Timatech. It is your standard 2.5-inch 1 terabyte SSD. This ran me about $85, so that's a comfortable middle ground. But is it going to work? Well, I'm going to put it in the machine. We are going to see if it shows up. If it doesn't, I have backup there, of course. And if it does, we'll just go ahead and install Tiger on it. So I think this is going to be interesting and educational, certainly for me. If you think it might be for you too, please stay tuned. Now I got this all set up so that you can see, but I'm going to be covering up everything that I do anyway. Nonetheless, take the door off. Now, we don't even need to take the air baffle out because we're working right up here. Okay, the data's in. Now, this is a little easier to do if you're using the adapter drive because it holds it in place. Now, I'm not using the adapter drive, but of course SSDs are so light, and the amount that you move this kind of thing around is limited. There we go. So that was easy. The challenge is going to be when this boots up, are we going to actually see the drive? If not, we'll open it back up. We'll use the OWC version. But nothing ventured, as they say. Stay tuned. I spared you the full boot up sequence. The apple has just come up on the screen, and it should of course boot into Tiger. If we are successful, we should see the initialize disk message pop up. And it does! Okay, it's actually working. I'll be darned. Wow. Yep, there's that 1 terabyte. I really didn't think it was going to work. All right. So, we can save substantial amounts of money putting SSDs into these machines. You just got to find the right one. How about that? Okay, and there's our SSD. Showing up exactly as it should. Probably trying to work around the camera and plug in. And there we go. There's our installers. All right. Just curious if this is actually going to work. It probably cannot be used from this volume. Interesting. Okay. Uninstall Leopard. And we'll restart it. Okay, bring you back when we're ready to install. Stay tuned. Alright, I don't have a ready explanation for this, but for some reason the Leopard installer would not boot up from the FireWire drive. It kernel panicked a couple times, so we're now trying to install using the disk. Hopefully this is going to work. I'll bring you back when we're in the installer, at least I hope. Stay tuned. I don't get this. It's kernel panicking again. I don't get it. Well, I've got some other possibilities here, so it's going to take me a while to figure all of this out, but we shall see what happens. Again, stay tuned. Okay, so I've put the quad into target disk mode, and I am now going to connect it to the Dual 2.3 and see if I can install Leopard using the Dual 2.3. Theoretically, it should work. Stay tuned. Well, obviously, this has devolved somewhat into chaos. And at least a couple of clips seem to have been lost in the process of trying to figure all this out. So let me try to catch you up. I believe you just saw me boot the quad into target disk mode. I then connected the 2.3 gigahertz dual core and mounted it, and the disks, of course, mounted perfectly well. What happened to those clips, I don't know. What I tried to do was to use the FireWire installer to install Leopard, and it kernel panicked. I think that catches you up, because the next thing is the attempt to use the DVD Now, what's going on, I don't know. I'll give something away from later. I did try putting the Firewire installer drive onto my iMac G5 and see if I could boot into the installer, and it booted just fine. So what's happening here, I really don't know. But let's continue and see what the result of all of this may be. Please stay tuned. Okay, so here we are. I've still got the quad in target disk mode. We are booted up into the dual 2.3, and I've got the installer disk in the 2.3's DVD drive. Let's see what happens now. Maybe this will work. Stay tuned. I have no idea what's going on here. I really don't. Okay, I've got one more trick up my sleeve. I'm going to boot the 2.3 back up and clone the installation. Not what I meant to do, but what the heck. We shall see if that works. So stay tuned. Okay, good old carbon copy cloner. This ought to work. We're going to clone from Leopard HDD, which is the internal hard drive in the 2.3, to the quad Leopard SSD, which I renamed, as I said, just to avoid any possible mix-ups and cloning the wrong thing to and from the wrong thing. All right, let's hit clone. And to authenticate. This will take a while. We're going SATA 1 to Firewire 800 since we're in target disk mode. Now, realistically, I could have just taken the SSD out, put it into the 2.3 and cloned it, but we're already connected, so what the heck. Okay, my friends. Yes, this has turned into rather some chaos, hasn't it? But we'll be back with the results of this. Stay tuned. All right, I have to admit, if I had an ounce of sense, my life would be very, very much easier. You see, this cloning was done. It took 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 1 second. And the reason it took so long is because this particular installation of Leopard is one on which I tried to do a video and edit it on the Power Mac. And I did it successfully. It just looked pretty bad. I then took all of the clips which were created in the Power Mac and re-edited them on the Mac Pro, and they looked fine. So the problem with video editing on a Power Mac is really much more related to the software. If I had simply, and there's more videos, there's Screenium clips, there's all kinds of things, all of which are saved in the Documents folder. If I had had the forethought to exclude the Documents folder, this would have been a substantially shorter job. But nonetheless, the cloning is complete. What I need to do now is shut the machines down, reconnect the quad, and see if the darn thing boots. So, stay tuned. Okay, so we booted up. It, of course, has been set to Tiger HDD as the setup disk. Startup disk. Let's get my cursor back here. Come on. Because we see Quad Leopard SSD clearly is an option. Why does this have to take so long? There we go. All right. So we select it. Let's see if we actually boot. Well, looky here. We are booted into Leopard. All right, so what have we learned? We have learned, first of all, that if you find the right SATA 3 SSD, it will work on a PowerMac G5. My suggestion would be make sure that SSD specifically states in its advertising that it will be backwards compatible both to SATA 2 and SATA 1. This Timatech that I'm using now certainly did. And it's the first one that's worked other than the OWC. And it is, well, an OWC SSD by itself without the 3.5-inch converter is $130. This was $85, so obviously a better solution. Okay, so we will come back and do some more testing with all of this. I've got a bunch of other videos planned anyhow, so be good to other people. Other people both need it and deserve it. Be good to yourselves. Same thing. We'll make this world a better place. It is not yet, so please take very, very good and careful care. So we'll be back with more G5 stuff and more G4 stuff and whatever other stuff I can come up with. Until such time, this has been Broken Electronics.